why are we going to Elders Quorum and just talking about fluff? I mean, the gospel's not fluff, but like, let's take the real challenges we're dealing with and take the reality of the gospel and all its beauty and actually apply it to the real things we're facing and leave feeling strengthened and like, I can do it this week because I've got brothers, I've got Jesus Christ on my side, and I have his true gospel.
Did I just hear you say, make Elders Quorum great again? Is that what I heard?
I pretty much just said, make Elders Quorum great again.
And now, let us reason together.
Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. I'm joined today by a guest, Daniel Oki. He's shaking things up in the Elders Quorum. He commented on the Elders Quorum video, which, by the way, did a lot better than I thought it would. His comment stood out among the other 100-plus comments that we got on that video because he's doing a lot of really cool things in his Elders Quorum, and I wanted to figure out what's going on. So, Daniel, could you tell us a little bit about your ward? What kind of ward are you in? What's the makeup of your Elders Quorum? Are you the president? And what kind of things are going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Hayden. Appreciate it. And I appreciated your video. If you haven't watched that video, I'd recommend watching that before you watch this.
Sure.
But I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're Southeast Charlotte. And we have a newly formed ward and that formed end of last summer of 2024.
Yeah.
And I was an Elders Quorum President in the ward previous to that for only 2 to 3 months before moving to this Elders Quorum. But our ward is probably, I shouldn't quote numbers here that I'm not too confident in, but we're a little bit smaller of an Elders Quorum. We're struggling. We don't have called teachers per se. Most of them are being used in the auxiliaries, the primary, the young men's, things like that. And so, but the church is growing here in Charlotte, especially with the announcement of the temple.
Yeah.
So with that being said, though, our range does go from new fathers and single individuals to all the way up to, people who are retired or in their 80s.
Okay.
And
so is it one of those?
Frequently.
Yeah. Is it like a newlywed, nearly dead kind of ward, or do you have a good mix of families and stuff like that?
Have a good mix of families. So the ward we were in previously, before this ward split, I was a little bit on the younger side with a couple with a little bit more of the older generation, but I would say most of them had a couple kids on the younger side with a strong youth program. So the church is, you didn't know, church is doing well in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Super good. Yeah, great to hear.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Sweet. So I was called in as an Elders Quorum President last April into the ward before the split, and I had been serving on the High Council before, so I'd been pretty involved in that ward's Elders Quorum.
Right.
And to be completely frank, I was tired of Elders Quorum myself, and I found myself. I really resonated with your video because I found myself not wanting to go to Elders Quorum, even though that was kind of one of my main responsibilities on the High Council was to support this group. And these were great brothers. The presidency was great. They weren't doing anything wrong per se. It was just, I just wasn't looking forward to it. I wasn't excited about Sunday, nor did I feel, that I was specifically on Sundays I was going to form a brotherhood. Sure. There were other activities that were kind of forming outside of that were good, that we have friends and stuff, but Sundays were painful for me.
Yeah.
So it's to me, what Elders Quorum has been a lot of my life, not every Sunday and not every ward, and I'm not prescribing this as to be everyone's experience. This is just mine.
Yeah.
Is that we go to Elders Quorum, there's some joke, we crack a few jokes in the beginning announcements.
Yeah.
A brother stands up, pulls out a phone, and we basically read through a talk in general conference. We're sitting in hard metal rows of chairs in the back of the cultural hall, and half the brothers are checking ESPN on their phones. I don't know what they're doing. I shouldn't judge, but we're not an engaged group having a discussion per se.
Right,
So
right. So you go around the room, you're reading paragraphs, everyone has to ask the last person, like, where did you stop reading? Yeah, so I can pick up on that. Yeah. Yeah, no,
exactly,
I've been in many of those lessons myself. Yeah.
exactly. And I've got young kids, and so if one of them needs help, I would rather be in the hallway than I would be in the Elders Quorum lesson.
Right.
And so I felt terrible about that, a little guilty, even though it wasn't necessarily my fault. And I also was like, well, I can do something. When I got called as Elders Quorum President, I felt like I can do something about this. We don't have to just do what has always been done. We can make a change.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, exactly.
You're
So
getting crazy on me here. Yeah.
we're going crazy. I need to be careful here. Hopefully,
Yeah.
my stake president doesn't watch this. So, and again, I'm not claiming to have found solutions or to be perfect. What I am saying is I've tried to do things a little bit differently than what I just described.
Yeah. So let's get into that. So I remember
Yeah.
reading in your comments something about like round tables and like a snack and discussions and stuff like that. And I was just like, this is crazy. This is amazing. So give me the formula. Let's crack it open and examine this for a little bit.
Absolutely. So I got invited. I was at a restaurant and I got invited to this Christian men's group where once a month on a Friday morning they do a breakfast and a round table around a campfire, and we just talk about issues that are difficult specifically for men. And I learned from that. I saw the attendance at those events, and I saw how the men bonded, sitting in a circle, talking about specific topics that we're all dealing with that we don't really talk about, eating food. And I was like, which one of us aren't hungry at church?
Right.
We've been dealing with our families and kids. We're bored. And we want to talk. We want to talk about the real things that are facing us, but we're not really given that opportunity all the time. So I just said, we're setting up round tables that are sitting in the cultural hall every time. And we set up 3 to 4 tables in the back of the cultural hall around chairs. And the first 7 minutes when you walk in, we dump fruit snacks and whatever healthy chip we can find at Costco on the table. And the first 7 minutes are a snack and chat. So you come into the cultural hall and you grab a bag of chips and a fruit snack, and you just sit and you talk to the guy next to you. And I cannot tell you the people that used to come in and just sit and not talk to anybody, what would start to happen. Because when you're eating, it's natural to start socializing.
Yeah.
So people would start talking. I don't really know you. And when you're sitting in a circle, it's not so uncomfortable where you're like craning your head to the side, sitting on a hard metal chair, trying to turn behind you.
Right.
So it just created this natural socialization and unity that we've just seen the benefit of. And does everybody talk to everybody? Of course not. There's still the brethren who kind of keep to themselves, but they have had more conversations than they normally do have, and get engaged. So
that's great, because there's always that one Elders Quorum teacher that says like, hey, I'm going to get you guys to talk today. So everyone divvy up into groups and we're going to talk. And it turns into like 3 or 4 groups happening. And then like a bunch of guys just kind of sitting there awkwardly like, am I going to be with you guys? I'm going to be with you guys, or I'm just going to look at my phone, So having the round table, it seems like that's almost forcing them to engage with other people, and then bringing the snack element is great, because I once heard like the secret to a man's heart is through his stomach, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the case for me. Like for me, Chanel might get a little upset with me about this, but like one of the first things she made for me, like she cooked in when I was going to BYU Idaho, and she burnt waffles. And I was just like, my mom was a baker growing up, and food was big for me. And so like I saw that she burnt waffles, and I was like, whoa, I don't see a lifetime of happiness here, But after that, she was just like, no, I can actually cook. It's okay. So then she made like a big, like orange chicken with a banana cream pie and stuff like that. It was phenomenal. And so I was like, after that, I was like, okay, let's make this happen. I can see a lifetime with you now. This is great. But I totally get that. And men socialize through action as well. They don't socialize just by conversation. So like if you're giving them something to eat, they're going to open up, and then you're giving them also just through eating natural opportunities to, in a normal and natural way, bond and connect with each other. That's fascinating. What else? What else are you doing?
So so anyway, that alone will change your Elders Quorum lessons, I promise, if you just implement that. So
Yeah.
then the next thing we did is in the handbook, it talks about starting every Elders Quorum with a council about needs and challenges the Elders Quorum is facing. So I'm not trying to deviate from what is I mean, maybe
You're not
maybe
preaching blasphemy here, yeah.
I'm not trying to. I want to follow the handbook. I want to do the right things.
Yeah.
But how do we know what the needs of the brothers are? Do we just guess? It's like, well, what if we just send out an anonymous Google survey link and just have them tell us, what are you facing? Let's talk about any challenge or question you have going on right now. We don't know who it is. We'll send out the email before and just submit these things. And then we just literally, at the beginning of every Elders Quorum, take another 7 minutes or until everybody's done commenting and go through the questions that people have. And the first, and once a quarter, we dedicate an entire meeting to a council where we just go through questions.
Wow. So what kind of questions do you get?
Well, all sorts. And it's been so helpful to have like data of what the brothers are dealing with. And it's stuff that they're not going to raise their hand in Elders Quorum and be like, my marriage is failing,
Right.
But we're getting questions that kind of help us understand what the deeper issues are. So this last Sunday, the question was, how do I know if I shouldn't take the sacrament?
Whoa. And that's not something that someone's going to raise their hand like, excuse me, how do I know when I'm not worthy, right? Like, how do I know that I've messed up in a big way? And it's like, wow, that's a fascinating question. And you're there in a pool of strength with high priests, with elders, with a lot of different experience who can then pull from that and help that brother understand in a completely anonymous way. That's genius.
Former bishops. Yeah, it was great. We had a 10-minute discussion about this, and just the end message of that was, we don't self-disqualify from the sacrament. If we've done something that we need to talk to the bishop about, we take care of that. But that's between you and the bishop and the Lord. But there's a lot of things that you can repent of and still you don't self-disqualify from the sacrament unless it's something that's pretty serious that needs to be discussed. So that was a great question. We've had a question of, if the church is true, why are there so few members? We've had the question of, how do I help my children come back to church? How do I
so like real down to earth nitty gritty questions.
Guys, why are we going to Elders Quorum and just talking about fluff? I mean, the gospel's not fluff, but like, let's take the real challenges we're dealing with and take the reality of the gospel and all its beauty and actually apply it to the real things we're facing, and leave feeling strengthened and like, I can do it this week because I've got brothers, I've got Jesus Christ on my side, and I have his true gospel.
Right.
And I have the priesthood. And if we don't connect that to the realities that we're facing in our life, I think that we're going to struggle. I think that the brothers are going to struggle, the families are going to struggle, and we have an hour every 2 hours every month to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Right. So are you telling me we don't need another lesson on how not to judge other people and that we need to love more? Is that what you're saying? That we can actually grapple with difficult questions?
I think we should grapple with difficult questions. We went through, so we do the same thing with lessons. The handbook says you talk about topics and themes from General Conference. Well, let's submit an anonymous survey. What do you want to talk about in lessons? And let's answer them with topics and themes from General Conference. Wow. So in the family proclamation of the word, we're talking about marriage, right? Marriage is a continual theme that's coming up in these surveys of people in our ward where that's a struggle. So what does it mean in the church? We have a real discussion. What does it mean to preside in the home versus church as equal partners in love and righteousness? Is the husband the boss? Does he decide everything? How do we grapple with this? Right. And what do we, and let's use doctrine, and let's use the handbook, and let's use the family proclamation. We're not trying to spit opinions here. Let's be true to the church material.
And for those who don't know, I mean, the church just came out with an update this last weekend where you can now ask the AI that the church came out with of the handbook. So if you have really specific idiosyncratic questions, you can just pitch those right into the church's AI and it'll direct you where to go in the handbook, which is fantastic. And I'm sure that'll probably help make for some great discussions in Elders Quorum.
No, great. I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't aware. So absolutely. But
oh yeah, I was geeking out about it because I had to do like a lot of setting up parts and stuff on Sunday, and I was just like, oh man, what's the wording on this? And it just brought it right up, and so I didn't have to go on this big scavenger hunt or anything like that.
That is a great feature because that is a real pain of the handbook sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sundays have changed, and I knew we were on to something. And I always joke about this. When I saw the dads who would normally leave to go help their kids and never come back, they started to come back. They started to come back and finish the meeting. They would take care of their kids.
That. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild. So I've got a lot of questions. So first of all, where did you come up with these ideas? Is this something that just like one morning you're like, boom, round tables, snacks, I'm going to give it a shot? Did you hear it from somewhere else? What's the process there?
Yeah. I mean, I run a company, I run a business. And so I really believe in client feedback and customer feedback. And if you don't ask, you don't get. And so, the experience of going to that Christian men's group, I genuinely prayed. I just said, God, how do we help the brothers? How do we help the brothers on Sunday? What do we do? And I've just acted on the ideas that have come. Yeah. It's gone really well. The previous ward that we implemented this, I've done it now in 2 wards. I was in the ward that split now, this new ward. They've kept the round tables and the snacks and the surveys as well. It's still going.
Whoa. So you're onto something. So something is sticking. Something is sticking.
I mean, I think once you go round table snack, it's hard to go back.
That's right. Well, and finally, you can use up that budget, like there's such little amount of budget given to the Elders Quorum. Spend it all on snacks. It's like, that's better than just like rolling it over to the next year, or not even getting it anymore.
Absolutely. And you can buy snacks that are not expensive. You can spend 10 to 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Twice a month. And you don't eat it all, and you can roll it over to the, you bring that. Yeah. It has not been as expensive as I expected. One thing we do with the snacks is they are for the Elders Quorum. So when all the kids rush in after, we don't hand them out to the primary kids or the youth.
There you go.
They're for the dads. The dads are and the men. They're free to take them home, but we don't hand them out to anybody else.
Good for you. Look at that. You're like, hey, these are dad snacks. Okay, these are sacred.
Well, I do think, though, it would create a problem because what happens if the kids got them, they would run around and make the mess after church. Which
every week they would start coming to Elders Quorum. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the dads would just be like, here are your snacks. I got to save these now for you. Yeah. No, I get that.
Right. So we've said no to that. The other cool thing that's happened is in doing our monthly meeting with the Relief Society, they've started doing surveys and understanding what problems the Relief Society sisters are facing. And so here we're getting this data from the brothers and the sisters, and we're starting to see the patterns of what they're both facing.
Yeah.
And we're able to work together with the bishop and the ward council to actually target the real problems and address them in our Sunday meetings. And this, just ask and then pray. Great information precedes great revelation. So that's where I would say this has come from.
Well, that is phenomenal. So what kind of engagement are you seeing? So you rolled all this stuff out. You're saying more brethren are talking to each other. What else are you seeing in the quorum?
In the ward previously, our Elders Quorum attendance was the highest that it ever was in the 2.5 years I was there. In this ward, there's been kind of a calling shift, and so sometimes they need more. You got to
build momentum a little bit. Yeah,
we're building more momentum, and we brought 2 wards together, and so it seemed like in the previous ward there was kind of just more cohesion and being able, like this was like a spark that kind of lit the fire. Yeah. This has felt a little more slow going, but at the same time, we have brothers from other wards who attend our Elders Quorum.
Really?
and their own ward. So they'll come and attend.
They double dip. Look at that.
They double dip a little bit, yeah. With the chip and the meeting.
That is fascinating. That's a great call out there. Yeah, I'm always in it for the dad jokes, but I mean, that is fascinating that you are getting brothers that are going to an extra hour on Sundays. They are checking out so that they can sit in a meeting that is actually engaging them and that is actually providing them that brotherhood. I think that goes to, I think the point that you were calling out earlier, that that lack of brotherhood isn't being felt, and it's actually being, I think men crave that. And so to see men actually take time aside and say, I'm going to go visit this one. Are these young men that are going? Are they older or?
Young men, and it's not a ton. There's one or two, but
yeah, but still, yeah.
But still, it stuck out to me. And we'll have visitors, right? And the comments are very positive. Just, I've never been in Elders Quorum like this. We've had a brother publicly ask for a priesthood blessing in Elders Quorum when we were giving a blessing on blessing. I mean, can you imagine having a brother in your Elders Quorum staff and say, "I'm really struggling. Can I get a blessing right now?"
Wow. And to have, that level of comfort in the quorum is insane. It's like I just thinking about that with the quorums that I've been in. It's like, yeah, I'm barely comfortable enough to just like start up a side conversation, just like, hey, how are you doing? Good. Oh yeah, me too. But that's amazing. Because that shows that this brother has reached a certain comfort level and he feels a certain connectedness to the quorum and a certain level of security with them. That's phenomenal. So have you received any pushback? Like, have there been any like angry high priests that are like, this isn't the way that we did it. Hey, cut that out. Anything like that?
No, in fact, it seems like the high priests love it the most. They're
That's
like,
amazing.
finally, some snacks up in here.
You usually have to go to nursery to get these. Yeah.
Exactly. So one of my first Sunday in the old ward, we had a member of the stake presidency there. And it normally Elders Quorum falls on the second and fourth Sunday, so it's never a fast Sunday. But it was, for some reason, a stake conference and a general conference or something. And so that Sunday actually happened to be fast Sunday. So I accidentally brought snacks on fast Sunday, which was funny. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
I won't tell anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he knows. I have received. I've been very open. I will follow the direction of the leaders if I get. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to break anything. I'm trying to serve the brothers. That's what we're trying to do. And when I say I'm talking about my presidency.
You and your presidency, yeah.
Yeah. So I have not received any negative pushback at all. And I think so far.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. And it sounds like the word is rallying behind you. What about Relief Society? Have you gotten any comments from sisters about this?
The sisters will joke and say, man, Elders Quorum is looking good, because they'll peek in, and their husband, and there's, we're all sitting in tables and we're eating and looks like we're having a good time. Yeah. So that's been a good thing. I think the biggest change that has been cool to me again is the sisters have taken the surveys, and we've run a joint Elders Quorum Relief Society survey around attending the temple, which is one of our core responsibilities, right? Is helping members attend the temple and seeing what the barriers to people attending the temple are. So it's helped us just become more unified and work as a team. But nothing really crazy there as far as like the Relief Society sitting in round tables and eating snacks. They get their own room already.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the question that I know everybody is dying to get the answer to right now, and that is the tables. Who is setting up and taking down these tables? What kind of effort are you expending doing that?
Yeah, so originally it was me coming in every Sunday and saying, let's get the tables going. Can I get some help? Yeah. Probably for the first 2 months. I did that in the old ward, and I've now done that in this ward. Now, the brothers just do it.
Really?
Well, and my presidency has been a core part of that. But now when I walk into the back culture hall, most of the tables are already set up with the chairs and people are helping. So it's become part of the culture. Yeah. It's become part of the culture. Yeah, but it takes work. It takes a consistent effort. Basically, if the default's sitting in rows of chairs, that's what people are going to do.
Yeah.
But if you change the default saying, no, we're doing tables every time, no matter what, eventually it's like, okay, that's what we're doing.
Well, and I don't know if this was for all wards, but I remember this initiative being pushed out a handful of years ago saying we need to get semicircles set up, and so they were like, we need stadium seating in the Elders Quorum gymnasium, And it started off as a semicircle, and then I've noticed over the years that slowly that semicircle has kind of like turned back into just rows, you know? And because you could still find a back row in the semicircle, they just set like 2 or 3 rows up, and it just was like rows 2.0, you know, where the purpose, the principle of that was like, we want brethren looking at each other more and engaging with each other more. So that's amazing to hear. The tables are working.
Yeah,
So
I would say
yeah, go ahead.
that's a great. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's a great point. You can create rows behind the semicircle. When it's the table and there's only 4 tables and you only have chairs set up around the tables, it's weird if you go take a chair and sit in the back corner.
Right.
You know, like you can, no,
Like
we're not going to stop you.
It becomes more uncomfortable. Like you're calling
Right.
more attention to yourself by trying to be an outcast or trying to be detached from everyone than if you were to just grab a seat at a table.
You walk in, you belong. And that's what I think brothers need to feel.
100%. Totally agree with that. What would be your advice to Elders Quorum presidencies who are just starting up? They want to make a change right now, and they want to kind of fix the culture of the Elders Quorum. How do they get started?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down always going to God first, right? I'm not prescribing this is what every Elders Quorum in the world needs to do, and I don't receive revelation for all that. But I would say get with your presidency and discuss these ideas and then see if it makes sense for you to try in your Elders Quorum. We don't have to do things the way they've always been done. We can focus on Jesus Christ and make it an enjoyable experience. If this is the church of joy, let's make it joyful.
Right.
And then when you get that Sunday meeting right, everything else gets easier. The out of Sunday activities, the brotherhood, people actually know each other, the ministering interviews, and all that begins to compound to be able to actually make an Elders Quorum that's a brotherhood united in serving God's children. And I think that's what it really comes down to.
That is fast. So you've actually seen more brothers come out to activities and stuff like that after you implemented these changes?
Well, we're working on getting our activities going. That's been a little bit of a struggle, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed is brothers are getting to know each other actually in the Sunday meeting, right? It's like, how many Elders Quorums you've gone to for years where you still don't know those 5 brothers who sit on the other side?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like you got to sit and talk because you've been eating chips together, and eventually it's gonna be like, well, what do you do for work? You know, like
Oh yeah, it'll come up. Yeah.
It'll come up, and we've seen things like that happen. And so, just facilitating the connections, I'm a believer. I will suggest this and implement it everywhere I go unless instructed to otherwise.
That's amazing. So now, kind of as the final question, I want to speak to the elders that want to connect. They want brotherhood, but they don't feel like their Elders Quorum presidency is currently providing that. Like they're kind of stuck in a forgotten Elders Quorum. What would your suggestion or your advice be to those elders that feel like they're being looked over, they're being forgotten, they want to connect, but they can't?
Show them this video and skip this question. No,
That's great.
It's a great question, because if you're not in a position to actually suggest change or implement change, that can be difficult. You can only do so much. I think genuinely one of the cool things I think that's happening as Latter-day Saints, we are like yourself, are becoming active and creating content and channels. And I think as we connect more and recognize that we're not islands on our Elders Quorums, that we can learn from each other and see what's working. I'm a big believer in prayer. I really believe that, if you feel that your Elders Quorum is a forgotten, lonely island that has no brotherhood and you feel lost or forgotten about, going to your knees is the best place to get answers of what to do next. And I know from my own experience that if you do that, direction and answers will come of what actions to take, and it really will just come down to acting on them. Whether that is showing this conversation to your Elders Quorum presidency and sharing it, whether it is suggesting or just setting up tables and saying, is it okay if I set up tables? Right. And or I bring a snack to share, whatever that may be, just making the effort.
I mean, I've served in a handful of Elders Quorum presidencies where, like, if I were to get some kind of feedback like that, I don't know a single presidency that would be like, no, we're not going to do that. Where, like, if someone were like, hey, I have some questions that I'd love to ask. Do you think we could start up like a quorum doc or something like that? And we can start asking these questions. And I think that would be more than welcome from my experience. But I love how you keep bringing it back to personal revelation. I think that's absolutely true. And I think it's following the example of the brethren as well. Like these, like if you look at President Nelson, since he's become prophet, he's got a great track record of shaking things up and making changes. And so
Just in time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're following his example by just refusing to accept that things are going to be the way they are always and forever. By shaking things up, I think you're following that example of the prophet as well. So I think that's fantastic. And I think it's been a great conversation. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. For anyone out there that is in a forgotten, lonely elders quorum, be sure to pray, find that revelation, approach your elders quorum presidency, see if you can find some change that way. If you are still stuck and you want to connect with other people, we've got a Discord server, dadsneedfriends.com. We're not selling anything. We just game. We just talk and we game. We have like little chat channels about different aspects of life. So come join us if that's your thing. If not, no worries. And so with that being said, is there anything else you want to say to Elders Quorum presidencies or anything like that?
Shake it up and make Elders Quorum a place that everyone actually wants to be.
Yeah.
Instead of just doing the minimum.
So did I just hear you say make Elders Quorum great again? Is that what I heard?
I pretty much just said make Elders Quorum great again.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, well, that's enough for me. That's great. Well, Daniel, it's been wonderful talking with you. I wish you success. We'll have to have you on as we kind of continue forward and see what kind of progress you get with your quorum.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Hayden.